the subway. This is one of those things commonly known amongst the street performers is like the hot spot. And then there was an odd end of Washington that was even better. So we went down to our regular spot, which was Washington. After we get out of school, we go get our tap shoes, our boards, and we go shoot down there. And he just happened to be on our spot. So we we kind of sat there. We kind of knew all of the janitors and stuff that worked in the subway, and we were sitting there because we was pissed. Like, this is our money spot. Dude is on here singing and stuff. Like, he got to go. So our janitor came over. Like, what's up? He's like, I got you. So he went and because he was sitting on the bench, and the bench is where people sat at before waiting for the train. So he told him, listen, you got to get up. You can't sit on the bench and do what you're doing. So oddly enough, he waited. He started packing his stuff up. But before he left, he said, hey, actually, can I do two more songs? And the janitor was like, yeah, okay, you can do two more songs. And he did this McDonald's song that he had. And every kid loved McDonald's, right? So we sitting back, and he did this sweet apple pie, da 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 da, what I was singing. And I was like, he can stay.
It was that
It
good.
was that good.
Wow.
He blew it out like just McDonald's. Like, who sings about McDonald's? And
Wow.
Right.
it should have been a commercial. But so we went over and started talking to him, and was like, yo, man, what's up? We know him here, but you got some good songs and stuff. We like to keep do the McDonald's song again, and then we're gonna go find another spot. And I went in my pocket, gave him some change,
Wow.
and we went to another spot, and that was it. So he didn't stay down that long, probably about a year or something. His tenure lasted in the subway, and then that was it. But that's where we originally met, in the subway street performance.
Okay. And so now, how did that lead to you being? And we'll get into, I guess, what title you want to. Well, what title do you want to be called? We'll go that route because you're saying
People call
people
you the
are
manager.
calling you the manager. What title were you hired as it relates to
I was
R.
never hired. So one, I would say friend first, who uh, saw another friend in a dire position, and I came in to assist him. So what made sense at that point was consultant and advisor, but the true realm of our relationship was I was an investor. I had a digital music platform called IndieBill, where we launch independent artists and we give legacy artists a second, chance. And at that particular point, in his career, the label, his music sales were kind of, going down, and his relationship with the label was tarnished. So I said, listen, it's time for you to, do something different. So I said, let's launch some music on IndieBill. So and the reason I moved into the investor position was because he was broke. He had just launched the song "I Admit." Yeah, I was actually headed to California to work with my uncle at the time, and I heard the song on the way there, and turned around and came back and met him at the studio, and it was like we met, and um, I'm like, yo, what's going on? Like, I'm saying, ain't so. you know,
Now, just for timeline purposes, this is in 2018.
2018,
Okay.
yeah, it's 2018. And this is like all of the years from the street performing. We would run into each other periodically, but he was in the music game and I was in the theater game initially, because me and my brothers, we tap danced. So we went off and did, Broadway, we did river dance, noise funk. I tapped out of the country for about 4 or 5 years, Amsterdam, Sweden, Switzerland, Denmark, and then came back, and tapping was becoming a pain. Like my knees and all that stuff was, aching because I did a lot of high energy stuff, flipping and stuff like that. So I went to California, where I settled there and kind of got behind the scenes in the music business and television, stuff like that. Um, and that was it. So we kind of knew each other in passing because we were in the same industry, which is entertainment, but our careers were miles apart. He was on the way up the mountain. I was kind of, on the heel. It's different. So that's essentially, where it all began. And but that was the familiarity that we had with each other, was that good old brothers from Chicago, from the West Side, from the subway, and that's like a brotherhood. Anybody who makes it out the subway to do something big that's a sensation, especially to the other person. So when I heard the song "I Admit" and had heard in 2018, When he lost that, he didn't own any of his music and stuff like that. It was like, hmm, how did that happen? Now I've been in my career, I've been A&R over at Sony, A&R for Universal, MCA, and I've owned a recording studio. I produced artists, I managed artists. I've had a very extensive career in the music industry by this time. I'm like, well, there's only several ways that that could have happened. Um, so let me go back and question him and see where he actually sits at, in that little, whatever took place. So, I drove back to the studio, and we had a Q&A session right in front of everybody, and he was looking around. He was getting his hair cut. He said, "Hold on, man. I ran into your brother," and I was like, "Yeah, I ain't seen my brother in years." He's like, "Yeah, he had a real important message he wanted me to deliver to you," and I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Let's go in the back. It's kind of private. I don't want none of these guys knowing." And I was like, "Okay." So I'm going to the back, close the doors. He said, "Man, I ain't seen your brother." He said, "But I needed to get you away from all those guys because you were talking a lot of good stuff, and I didn't want them to know nothing about what you were saying because I don't trust none of them. None of the people in that front there, I don't trust any of them." So I was like, "So what's going on?" And that's when he broke it down to me. He was like, "I don't know nothing." You know what I mean? It's like Rob, how the hell did you get into that position? You know what I mean? He's like, "Well, about a month ago, everybody walked out on me and they left everything and they left me with nothing. Um, and I don't know what to do. I can't read. I can't this and all this stuff. So I don't know how to figure this stuff out." And I was like, "Whoa, okay." So I said, "All right, well, listen, I got a team, company, we do technology. I've got lawyers, everything. Kind of day, literally in the studio. It was a 3 hour meeting between me and him in the studio. He said, I'm one, you two, and that's it. I was like,
Okay.
okay. So the position that I left out of that was consultant and advisor. It
Okay.
wasn't manager, any of that stuff. It was consultant.
So let's back up a little bit. I heard you say that you came in um, investment wise. So, and if you don't want to share this, but how much did you actually invest?
Roughly about a little bit over 300,000.
300,000.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And in what way?
So he had so the first thing that we had to do was we had to get he was going through that moment where Sony was in the process of, releasing him from the terminating his contract from the label, and there was money owed there, so we had to bring in lawyers to kind of shift through that. Then there was people who wanted him to tour, but he had no way to get out on the road because both his buses was broke down. Uh, I mean, he was just literally in that kind of a financial. He didn't even have a bank account. He had no bank account, no ID. People around him was leaving and they were stealing things. I mean, so and that was part of the plot and the agenda for a lot of the folks that left out. They knew what was going on ahead of time as far as lifetime things. So they left with memorabilia or whatever they could take, and that's what happened. So when I got to him, he didn't have. I mean, literally, I was at his apartment, and I'm like, we sitting down, we talking. He's like, "Man, that's all the money I got to my name," and it was like $300 in singles sitting, on next to the bed. I'm like, "You kidding me?" I'm like, "Come on, Rob, stop playing." That's it. I was, so I had to go. And I have shareholders for my company, and I had to authorize writing, my checks. So I gave him some cash for his pocket. By that time, we had started getting a lot of his bills and things of that nature in, and start going through stuff and to see exactly where he was, and everything was behind. So his studio was almost $1 million behind, and it was a lease to own. His rent was 3 or 4 months behind. So I went through and negotiated with the owners of the facility, and I paid them 100 and I paid them 60 twice and 40 as far as money to them to get him out of that hole with the studio. Uh, and then I paid to get his buses back fixed because neither one of the sprinters worked. And he had a tour bus that wasn't working either. So we got both of those the sprinters operable. And then he had a Friday night listening party that he used to do every Friday, and I sponsored that. My company sponsored it because I thought it was advantageous for us to do that because putting the banner up at an R. Kelly listening party was good, you know. And he would be launching his next couple of albums on our platform, so I thought it made sense. So we invested in hopes of getting a return from that investment had he launched those two albums that Sony released him with. He owed those to Sony, but they said they didn't want them. They openly said that, but that's not contractually what they did. Um, so our goal was to launch those albums on the platform, and we could have potentially made about 16 million from that, from data sales and his fan base coming over to our platform. So that was the initial driving force. You got this platform, it's growing, becoming a industry name. Drop R. Kelly out on it, you know what I mean? That takes us up the mountain a little bit, and that was it. So that was the initial plan, that we saw as our reason for being a part of this thing, investing energy and time into getting him cleaned up so that we can launch him on a digital platform. And that's what I spoke to him about. I said, Rob, you got to diversify. I said, you're the only artist right now that doesn't have anything outside of music to live off of. You don't have any beverage companies that you're in partnership with. You don't have any technology. Let's put you on this digital platform. Use it to put your music. And he had movies and commercials, a whole bunch of stuff that he had, and behind the other, I called them doors of his talent revolving career. And I'm like, man, what the hell? You got some movies you done wrote? And I said, let's start working on some of that and let's put the music behind. Let's do a theatrical for Vegas or something. That's what I was coming to him saying, let's do that kind of stuff. But, the music was what he was in love with. I mean, so, and that's what we can go and check a bag quick. I mean, it was like he so broke that we had promoters that, took advantage of that. So they would offer him, some dates and we had to go out and go do them. So that was it.
Did you get a return on your investment?
No, not monetarily, no, because well, I'll say yes. I mean, because I did shut down the office, like probably 4 months in, our lease was up. Uh, COVID was kicking, and one of the investors that's one of my investors, he wanted to meet him, and he I said, okay, I'll arrange a meet with you guys. And we did a cigar sit down at the studio. We all smoked cigars, drank cognac. They laughed with him for hours. And when he left the meeting the next day, he said, Don, listen, I hear he's losing his studio. Uh, you know, um, when this wasn't because he was losing it because of the money, because we had called him up and had an arrangement with with the landlord. The city wanted him out. This is when the city came through and all of that stuff, right? They said something about the studio.
So we're fast forwarding. What year are we in now?
Same year. Now, this all. Okay, let's
2019?
clear this. I was only around 8 months.
Okay.
I'm done by then. So by 2018,
So from 2018, you literally were only around 8 months.
that's it.
Okay.
By a year, I was definitely done.
Okay.
So it took about a year. It's like when you're breaking up 4 months. 4 months, is what you together 8 months. 4 months of it is breaking up. So and then I had staff that was still working with him on certain things too. So that lingered while I went back out to Cali. But yeah, we're talking about within an 8 month period because we wasn't in there to be friends. We're in there to make money. I mean, I got a company I'm running. I'm the president CEO of my company. This is a diversion that we thought would work in the form of if we get in here and this guy launches his music on our platform and other intellectual properties on our platform. That's like that's golden. You can't pay for that. So that was our driving force for investing quickly, and this is the king of R&B. A lot can be done, and I'm sorry, you look at my schedule. You can add, my schedule is nothing compared to what his would be. I mean, you can take 5 or 6 pages of his schedule. Mine is one. Now it turns into 10 pages if I'm managing somebody like him. I'm working with somebody like him. So I can understand where people came into the role, where people came into the concept that I was his manager, because at that particular point, he had no management. His manager was Henry Mason, who had abandoned him pretty much and was stealing money from him. Prior to that, it was Artie Pabon, Prior to that, it was Daryl McDavid, and then before that was Barry Hankerson. At that particular point, everybody had abandoned him. So I was essentially doing the job of management, but I was not his manager.
So it's interesting you're saying that because if he had no manager,
Mhm.
everyone is pretty much titled you as his manager. I mean, pretty much you were his manager.
Well, no, because see, when you
What's the difference between
What you were
what
doing in a
you were
manager.
doing versus what a manager would be doing? Let's go that route.
me taking on responsibilities because there was nobody in place is one thing. A manager gets paid to be manager. He gets 20%. I ain't getting nothing. I'm spending money. I'm investing.
Well, initially in new artistry, you know this to be true because you're in the industry when I mean, and R. Kelly wasn't new at that particular time, but you might as well say he was new because he was broke. So you're coming in trying to revive his career. You saw an angle, you saw an opportunity, you executed, hoping that you would get a return, which in essence that is management.
No, it's not because one, he was still under contract with James Mason as
Okay.
his manager, so that would have been a conflict. One,
Okay.
James could have took him to court anytime. But no, I mean that's me stepping in something that I shouldn't be doing. If I'm general manager, and we can't, and your goal is to, get this thing going and moving down the road, but it's stopping because there's nobody sitting in this handling these things. You don't let the machine not go forward because these things are not being attended to. You find a way to get those things done so you can keep moving forward. That was more of it for me. It was like, okay, this shit here ain't getting done. And I'm tired of going in my pocket to pay stuff that if we get this stuff figured out, it could pay for it. And the it is, where's his royalties going? Where's his publishing going? Because that money coming in on a quarterly basis would cover him. And then it would get out of my pocket and back in his, and I could cover things that moves the mission forward. And his daily bread is already taken care of by his earnings. So he had no one securing or even knowing where his earnings were going. They were going so many different places.
So
that's
so
why
basically, so that's why you're saying you were a business consultant.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go with that. That's your title, business consultant. So now let me ask you this before we fast forward. Um, was there a written contract?
No, never.
So how did you think, or you just basically was what shaking hand type of agreement, or as far as you recouping your money?
Well, so I'm recouping my money from my platform. I mean, I own the platform. So I mean, if I put his album out, I mean, you can put music out on Facebook right now and don't have an agreement with them. They're gonna still make $20 million off you, or something close to it, because they sell your data. They get advertising because of you and your fans that come and they engage when they sell all their stuff. So I wasn't giving a care about this. Just put the music out on our platform. You're gonna continue to be you. We're gonna be us. And when these people come in to access your music or your intellectual property, we get all that data. And we mine the data, and not only we mine it, we get advertising because of the data, because of this new influx of fans that's coming because R. Kelly's on our platform. And if he's on it, then guess who else? He's gonna bring some other people on it. Some other folks are gonna come. So that's what we.
That was the initial. So let me ask you this. Prior to R. Kelly, were there any other major names that you were involved with business wise, or was R. Kelly your biggest client?
Oh no. I mean, I've been in. Yeah, I mean, I've had. Well, let me rephrase that. R. Kelly was the biggest person that I personally worked with at that capacity, meaning all in. I mean, this is somebody we can. It's like getting the Jay-Z or somebody like that to, promote your brand. You know what I'm saying? If he drinks this one day, that's it. It takes off, right? So that's how. So he was the biggest person at that point that we did have our hands around that would promote the Indie Bill brand. Now I've worked with tons of artists. I can go down the list of A-level artists. I mean, I don't keep them in my head because but B.B. Winers, Michael Jackson, Luther Vandross. I've produced Kid Rock, Steve Harvey, Bernie Mac, associate producer on both of their shows. We go over to theater. You talk about Gregory Hines, Savion Glover. I can go on and on. I mean, I went from a kid that did theater at the highest level and came back and went to LA and dived immediately into the music business because that's what was cracking. My manager was Dick Scott. Dick Scott managed New Kids on the Block. They managed LL Cool J. He managed Maurice Starr, who had New Edition. They all worked for his company. So Dick would take me because he didn't know what to do with a tap dance, and my music thing wasn't as strong then. He would take me to meetings, and I would be like his gopher. You know what I mean? And he would, essentially, say, "Son, get your briefcase." The older guy, and when he used to drive me to his meeting, I got with Norman Lear. I mean, or whoever. I'm saying just some of the biggest names in the world. So I would show up in a suit, get in this car, drive him to the meeting, carry his bag in, and he would tell me to go sit over there and don't say shit. And I'd be like, okay. And he would be in a room with some of the highest names in the industry, and they would be making deals like, right here sitting at this table. And they would be like, Dick, you're an old guy. You don't know shit. And it would be Norman Lear here, Lucian Grimes sitting right there. And these are names that you're in the industry, you know who they are, right? And he was like, I'm telling you, this is going to be a fucking hit. It's going to be great. And he would call me, come here, son. He would whisper some shit in my ear and sit down, which basically says sit down and shut the fuck up. And I'd be like, okay. And they look over like, what did he just get from him? So they would think Dick's ideas was coming from me or somebody young like me. So then he would get the job or the investment capital because they thought he was plugged into the youthful, the youth. And we were feeding him stuff and he was feeding it to them. So I got in a lot of rooms with some of the top names in the industry. I mean, you can tell on a daily basis. You have, Darkchild will call me one day, Barry Gordy the next, Kerry Gordy, Barry's son the next day. No, he was the first person that there was an opportunity for me to have a company that I owned, have a business relationship with that person. I'm a entrepreneur, fresh in the gate, technology, moved over from entertainment to technology. And my first client could potentially be R. Kelly. That's pretty good. So that's from where I was coming from with this thing. That's why I was so committed to making it happen, because what kid gets that? And I started thinking maybe God introduced me to this guy in the subway just for this moment to happen. Me to get this technology project to a certain point when we're ready to launch it off. And I just happen to know R. Kelly, who needs somebody like me at this moment. So that was the whole gist of how I looked at the partnership and what drove my energy to making sure we were just as accurate and as on point as I felt he should have been. I'm looking at the King of R&B. I'm not knowing that he was handling his A-level career like he was still a street performer. I didn't know that. You had to get in there to see that this shit is a hot fucking mess. You can't see that from the outside. It's like a beautiful woman walking down the street, and you take her home and she start taking off her hair, and she got 15 fucking kids and shit. And you're like, you should have told me this before we got naked. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't do that. So that's it.
8 months. 8 months was your time with R. Kelly. Yeah. And within those 8 months, you acquired all of these charges.
Right. You go from being seen in the public as a manager to, quote, an intimidator, almost like a mob boss for R. Kelly. How?
8 months?
Because I didn't cooperate.
Break that down for us.
Well, before that, let's talk about the charges, because I think that's relevant, because I know the last interview you did at that particular
with
time, you had charges, and this was with Tasha K. Probably a little over a year ago now.
Yeah,
And at that time, you hadn't been convicted of anything.
Right.
The charges were pending.
Right.
So talk about the charges, and then we'll go into what you were actually found guilty of, because that's why we're here today. So what was the charge?
Well, they've sentenced you to 20 months in prison, and they're saying for stalking an R. Kelly victim and her mother. And then they also go on to talk about the Facebook page that was created, Surviving the Lies, and also an Instagram account, Surviving the Lies, right?
I never had Instagram.
Okay. But at least the Facebook page.
Yeah.
And the posting of new pictures on there, text messages, etc.
Well, that's not even, see, that's all a lie. Because first
so
of all,
you didn't do any of this?
No, Facebook doesn't allow.
So what were you charged with?
Well, what she stated was what I was charged with.
Okay.
It was interstate stalking, and then the other one was the venue. It was calling a threat at the New House, which is where the premiere of Surviving R. Kelly was. So those are the two charges. I went to court and fought out one of them, and we both were there. From the court that I sat in, it should have went the way it did. I should have gotten not guilty. And then because of what we witnessed happen, it was like, I'm not paying another $100,000 to go over here into the lady who just gave R. Kelly 30 years. And that was per the advice of my attorney too. It was like, Don, you're gonna lose. It's like a fixed deck. I mean, that's literally, I'm sorry, that is what it is. And I'll say that directly into the camera. It was a fixed debt. The prosecutor knows that. And I'm not going to say the prosecutor's office is bad, but there's somebody in the prosecutor's office that has a thing up their ass to bring down the king of R&B, which they've done that, and they don't care about the collateral damage. I'm collateral damage. I'm collateral damage because I did not cooperate. When they called me earlier on in the case, they asked me, Don, will you cooperate? And I told them no. I said, the things that I'm doing, I don't think they're going to help your case. Furthermore, I'm in Chicago. How the hell do I look at Chicago going against this dude? And you see what's happening right now. It's like, it doesn't take a rocket science, and I'm going to be getting threats and all type of shit if I come out and say I have a problem with anything. And the things that I had researched at that time were still unclear. We had not completed our work. We were finding out a lot of stuff about what was going on with his royalties and who was stealing stuff and all this shit, but it wasn't complete. We're talking about 8 months. So my team got in and we were working every day to unravel this hornet's nest of shit that was surrounding his career. You got to get through all that before you figure out what happened. And you do that how? By chasing the money. You follow the money. Wherever the money's going, chances are you're going to find some truth out. You looking for money over here, you're going to run into 10 other things before you get to the money that shine the light on the truth.
Well, let me ask you, not to interrupt you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're talking about the feds. This was a federal case.
Mm-hmm.
We know, the feds have a very high conviction rate, and
right.
Normally when they come for you, they know what they know. They got hard evidence. They got hard facts. That's what the norm is. Right. So in this case, you're saying that that's not true.
You're saying you did not stalk and you did not call in that bomb threat. That was actually shown in the Surviving R. Kelly documentary. You didn't do any of that.
There was never.
Well, they faked. They showed the.
Well,
they were talking about it and showing like some video.
Yeah, well, if you see the video, it was all peaceful. I was in the trial. Everybody showed video. They walked out of there peacefully. When they got out front, they started singing "Mute R. Kelly." Mm-hmm. And for the record, no, I did not call in a bomb threat. It's a simple whatever. It was a gun threat. It wasn't a bomb threat. So one, I was the only person that would. First of all, I spent $5,000 to get a cease and desist order done. That because they were infringing on his trademark. R. Kelly is a brand. I don't care what nobody think. It's a brand, just like McDonald's, just like Coca-Cola, just like Pepsi. It's a brand. Pepsi can't do a Coca-Cola event. They can't. But I'm having some problems with Coca-Cola. They're gonna get shut down, and a whole bunch of other stuff is gonna happen, right? So for Lifetime and the nuance, then let's take mine. Lifetime ain't had nothing to say about it. Lifetime never came after me. So if this is their event and I shut it down, why didn't Lifetime come after me? Why didn't they take part in the investigation or the trial or anything? This is government again. The same government that went after this man with everything they had and threw it at the book at him and wants to see him buried underground. I'm collateral damage. So I'm telling you, yeah, I was on the phone with the venue most of the day, sending a cease and desist order in. That was good enough to me because listen, if you go on beyond the point of knowing the cease and desist order exists, what is that? More money, $150,000 per infraction. So I don't care about shutting the event down. I want the event to happen so we can check a bag afterwards, to be frank. So for them to think that I would do that is stupid. I was on the phone talking with the employee at the venue, Kresnicki, what his name was, but who I didn't know until the trial, he was on 2 or 3 drugs. He admitted that in the trial. He was high and whatever else, which didn't matter.
So you did call?
I did. I called him several times. I was the only one.
Which is why they had the phone records.
Yeah,
because you did call.
We admitted to all
but
that.
not for a threat, is what you're saying.
I never. It was. I don't even think it was a threat called in. To be frank, I think either Kresnicki, what he did, because the last thing that happened when I talked to the guy, he was upset that Lifetime, the executive at Lifetime and his manager wouldn't take my call. I'm telling him, me and this guy been on the phone. I'm like, listen, this is R. Kelly's camp. We got problems going on. We getting life threats and all this stuff in Chicago. That's where it did come up at, because that was true. We getting everybody going on this page, threatening them and all this stuff. And it's like, this is an illegal event. He's sympathizing. He's like, I'm an R. Kelly fan. I don't like what they're doing. If that's the case, they should talk to you. I'm going to get my manager. He went and got his manager. His manager wouldn't get on the phone because Lifetime told him not to. I'm hearing him in the background. Then he went talk. He's like, well, I don't know what to do. So I said, listen, hang up. I'm going to call the police and I'll call back. Called the police and I said, listen, we getting death threats. This is an illegal event. It's causing life threats and all that stuff in Chicago. You guys need to get over there and shut the event down. So to me, doing that was like when they said, okay, we'll see what we can do. I couldn't call 911 because I'm in Chicago. That's New York. So it's not like you're going to get a direct line into 911 in New York. So I went online and found which beat that was, and I got the fire department's number. The fire department told me which precinct was closest to the venue. So I called the police department back, and they basically said, you know, the guy that answered the phone said he would get somebody over there. That was as simple as it was. So when I called them back at the venue, I'm like, you know what? They don't want to talk, whatever. He put me on hold. He never came back to the phone. That was the end of our conversation. When I heard that the event was shut down, I thought that the police had showed up and shut it down because of the conversation I had with him, not because it was a threat call. Did
So why you? I mean, you said the government is out to get you. We know this. If we know nothing about R. Kelly, we know every time R. Kelly went out
let's phrase
in
that.
the public.
Let's rephrase that. I don't want that to get out. I never said the government is out to get me. The government is a big machine. There is somebody with an agenda that works for government that has an issue with me.
Okay.
So that's single person, not the whole government.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
one
No,
person.
that's fine. Okay. So that person
Mhm.
is out to get you. Now we know this, and we know about R. Kelly. Every time we've seen a video, concerts, performances, R. Kelly has this huge entourage. Why you? What's so significant about you? You 8 months. You've been in this man's life for 8 months,
Mhm.
and they're targeting you heavy. You the only one, I believe, that got charged in his team, and you're the newest. You were the newest.
Mhm.
8 months.
Right.
Mhm.
Why?
That is funny. Why? You charge a man with RICO, you charge him with trafficking, and with RICO, you need an organization. So
right.
where's the organization at? These charges were around and thought of before I came on board. They had been doing this investigation for him for probably since 2008. So that is a good question. Why me?
Why do you think?
Well, one, because when I did dig into a lot of the stuff and found out who was stealing, it would have torn down on a lot of people that they use as witnesses. See, it wasn't just his management stealing. This stuff was tied to the women that accused him as well. A lot of them got payoffs and everything, and they were set up in corporations and taking his money too. I mean, so all of that was a part of what I was researching and finding out. Like, Rob, first of all, here's a company that's set up. He wasn't getting any of his Universal money. I'm going through, when I went through his portals, his music portals, anybody in the industry know what those are. That's where all of your documents are kept from the beginning of your career to the end. If you signed to Sony, Universal, whoever, they're different portals. You got a Universal portal, which is your music portal for movies and stuff. You got ASCAP. You got the one with the label and for your publishing and all that stuff. So I'm going through each of these portals and going through contracts from the beginning of his career, and I'm realizing now, one, the label knew he had issues with young kids or whatever the fuck in the very fucking beginning.
Why do you say that? What did you see that made you say that?
Provisions in his contract that stated certain. I've never seen a contract for an artist stating how far he had to be from a school and other things that were that kind of nature in these contracts. Now, for the record, earlier on when government contacted me, like I told them, listen, you're not asking his lawyers for shit to ask for that information. Don't ask me. This man, I'm going through his personal stuff. Unless he gives me permission to talk to you guys, I'm not talking to you about it. That's what I told them when they asked me. Now that I'm about to give up my life and got to go for, I don't give a shit. My trial is over with. His trial is pretty much over with. I'm gonna put it all out there. So the whole fact of it was I'm going through this and I'm looking at the line of people who are fucking stealing from him and all these women and all that. That would have fucked up their case. We got girls that got money from him, that got cousins that's now about to get new money from him. We chased that shit back down to who knew who brought them in, all this stuff. Everything was in there, the payouts. When you go through the portals, they had these companies that they would set up. We would Google, we would search the state for who owned the companies, and they would be registered to people who was in his management, or there was somebody who was a wardrobe person. Like, why the fuck are they getting paid a portion of his Universal publishing? So in the beginning, I thought it was just stealing, like somebody was stealing from him. Like, this is fucking horrible. I've never seen no shit like that. I mean, I've never seen the amount of contracts for one artist that he had with all the fucking provisions about, what he couldn't do, how close he had to be from proximity for this. If anybody in his entourage was under this age, they would drop his contract. It was some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen. But because they knew he had these issues from the beginning, they added those in to save their own ass in the event that something happened. So me being the person that went through everything and knew this because I was looking for one, how to get him his money going back to himself because he wasn't getting any of his royalties. Two, once we cleaned that up, now we can get the label out the way and the only output for his music distribution platform for his music now, I own it. So it made sense for me to do that. But in doing that, I uncovered a lot of shit that I wasn't trying to find out.
Such as?
I mean, you can go back any.
Well, before we get into that, let me ask you this because you said this and I don't want to forget. You said that management knew he had issues, he had problems.
Yeah.
Did you?
No, what you mean? Problems like how?
Did you know he had issues with
No,
kids?
hell no, hell no.
You never saw anything that let
No
you know
signs.
that he
No.
liked little girls.
Nothing.
Fuck, in 8 months. First of all, I wouldn't have been around nobody like that. That's some bullshit. I mean, that's beyond hard. Somebody, no, fuck no, and hell no. I've never seen anything that. And trust me, when I went in there and I started hearing about shit, I started paying closer attention. I didn't see anything that reflected him having an issue with young women. Now, I came across something later on that directly told me he did, and from that point, it was like, I'm done. I was out of the shit. I mean, so, but no, in the door, no, he was the perfect fucking, it's like you going on a date with a motherfucker.
So in 8 months, so in this 8 month span, you never saw any underage girls. Girls, I'm not even gonna say women.
Girls.
You never saw any underage girls around him in his entourage. You never saw any underage women, girls in his camp.
No, never.
But what did you uncover that made you say he has a problem? I'm done.
Well, it was two things. One, the Aaliyah contract, I did see that where Jomo, which is Barry Hankins' son, signed for $7 million, and I had to sit down and Rob and ask him because he had over $100 million in promissory notes that were signed out, and I'm like saying, Rob,
100 million?
Yeah, this man's catalog worth over 9. That's not difficult. But what was difficult for me to understand is how do you have so much money that's went out, and what did this money go for? So I had heard the stories about Aaliyah, and Rob and Leah's mother and Rob, and Aaliyah's father and Rob and all that shit. And it was like at this particular point, I'm like saying, okay, Lifetime Drama's out. I'm starting to get heat. I've been now announced as his manager and shit. Me and him are sitting down, and we would have these weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, sometimes twice a week meetings where I would go and say, listen, this is the shit that we got to deal with. This is what we uncovered, and I didn't think the rabbit hole was as deep as it was. It was like, you look at it thinking, okay, we clear up his royalties, we do this, we get the motherfucking whale back out into the ocean, it can swim. But, you start digging down this shit, and with his, it was just endless. I mean, so talking about Aaliyah, 7 million. Rob, what the fuck is why did Barry at the end of his contract get 5 million and Aaliyah's mom get $2 million? What's that about? So he's silent. So
this dude is lying on this.
about how they blackmailed him with the marriage and the pregnancy. Told her she was pregnant and shit. And for them not to go and destroy his fucking career, which Barry.
This guy is a liar.
Was a part of this shit. That he would have to pay out $7 million. He had fired Barry for stealing from him, right before that. So that's where the $7 million went. Jomo signed for it. Then I find out through Kerry and Bruce, who were with Rob that whole time, which is his brothers, that they were with him when Rob would go down to fucking Detroit, where they stayed at, and he would be in the bed with Aaliyah and her mother at the same fucking time. I mean, I don't really want to hear that shit, but that's the fucking truth. When I asked Rob about the situation that you have with a relationship with Aaliyah's mother, he didn't say shit. Whenever Rob didn't agree with me, he would get him, man, that's the dumbest shit. That's not right. That doesn't make sense. So he's sitting there dumbfounded. I'm like, Rob, I need to know this shit because eventually all this shit is going to come out. And if it doesn't come out, somebody's going to write it in a position that's going to fuck you up even further. But
this dude is such a liar.
Responsibility to my shareholders to at least have some kind of knowledge of what the fuck is going on so we can better prepare for this shit. So that's when it came out. He started, first thing.
Yeah, he said pregnancy brief. He's such a damn liar.
One, it was so many fucking contracts that I could not read all through all this shit.
What did your mom do?
Well, my mom, she works for me. She's a bookkeeper at my company, and she has more patience. So I would read stuff to him, and he would, "Can you read that again? Explain that to me." And I'm like, "Man, listen, I ain't got time for this shit. I read it to you. I'm only reading the important parts to you, Rob, because all that shit there don't even matter. This is the part in the contract where you got fuck that. This stuff here is bullshit. It's in every contract. So, but I need to know it all." I said, "Well, okay, well, you know what? We're going to get somebody who can read all that shit to you." So I brought my mom in specifically to read all that shit to him in contracts.
Oh my
And I go over the
God, this
parts that would bother
dude,
him
man.
or that have affected his career. Essentially, is that. So that was I brought her in. So um, and to go back into his character, you know how he I'm gonna say manipulates people because I remember the time we were at Trump Towers and I had just brought him on, and my mom had
Oh,
to,
now we're talking R. Kelly now.
yeah, R. Kelly.
Okay.
We were at Trump Towers, and he gave my mom power of attorney, and some other stuff that we needed to be able to do to authenticate him and all of his. We were trying to find out all of his assets, so he had to give her that so she could find out where everything was, so she could call the building people to find out how much his rent was and negotiate that. I didn't want it. I'm like, listen, I don't have time to be that kind of babysitter. I got a
Oh,
company to run, and this
wow.
shit here is taking up, it started consuming a lot of my time. So
Wow,
anyway,
y'all.
we were at Trump Tower. I'll never forget this one particular day, and this one I was like, this this moment down the road just stood out, just how he plays people. Um, we were sitting at the table, and he was signing an agreement, and my mom was like, "You have to sign your whole name out, Robert Sylvester Kelly." And we all sitting outside. He wrote Robert, and he stopped at S, and he started looking around, and I'm like, "What, you don't want to sign it?" And she looked and was like, "Oh." She wrote, wrote out on a piece of paper, Sylvester. So he was acting like he didn't know how to spell his fucking middle name. So he acted like he was looking at what she was saying and writing it and Kelly and all that shit. And it was like that made you think, this like nobody taught him how to read in all this time. Like they did this shit so they could take advantage of him. You know, that's how I started feeling like I gotta protect him in the beginning. Like, man, this is some bullshit. They didn't teach the guy how to spell his fucking name. So I mean, they was doing that so they could take money from him. That was the initial thought that I had. You know, so I'm gonna put that thought away until later on down the road. And it was like he knew what to do to draw you in, you know, to making you feel like he needed protection. Everybody was out to get Robert, and everybody was stealing from Robert and all this shit. So my mind,
So let me ask you this, because that's a key word. You said protection. That he needed protection,
mm-hmm.
and of course we know that was your title. Your title was his protector. Basically, everyone said that to the
You were
public,
like the
to the
muscle.
media. You were the muscle. You were his protector. I mean, we've seen several instances, even in the Surviving R. Kelly, where young girls, young ladies have came out and said that you've threatened them and
Threatened to put out their sexual images.
the one lady in particular,
Faith Rogers.
Faith Rogers. So Faith Rogers said that you basically called her, threatened her. I mean, so
and her mother.
And her mother. So none of this was true.
So let me tell you how that happened. No, so
He ain't answered the question.
I have no emotional connection.
So you don't know Faith Rogers?
I know who she is now because she's suing me for $50 million
right now.
Hell yeah. Hell no. So why would I be? I mean, looking at Faith Rogers or any of them. I mean, these are all to me contracts that were coming in where they were trying to sue them. That's all. When you file a complaint to sue somebody in civil court, it's a contract, right? So those ending contracts in civil court, we know how to do that. I mean, it's a contract. You don't consent to the contract, you send it back. So what happened was in the event of FR, because
we can't say the name.
I
right.
can't. Y'all can.
Yeah.
FR. I remember him. This happened between him and my mom. I had nothing to do with that. By this time, I was more like, this is when I'm sort of winding down because there's a lot of shit that's not adding up now. So he sent. It was a Lydia Hill, was an attorney who sent a demand letter for $250,000, or else we would take this to court. Yada yada yada. They got so many of those. There was another chick, Heather Williams, who she was suing him and Jay Z. It's supposed to be on the Best of Both Worlds tour that both of them. She just had a judgment actually came in. So these are contracts, and now he's sitting all these contracts down, and it's like we looking at them like this shit is way beyond anything that we ever thought about getting into. I mean, my mom would talk every day like, we got to pull back. Like this is not the fuck we thought. It's too crazy. And the reason we felt like it was crazy is because of him. It's like, dude, we sitting here, and I remember going to the studio one day like, Rob, fuck this Friday night shit. It's not getting you nowhere. It's bringing in people that you don't know what their intentions are. You know what I mean? It was bullshit.
Friday night. What do you mean?
He would have
every Friday. He did a listening party down in the studio. I'm like, it's bullshit. Secondly, you playing ball every day. You told me you don't trust none of these motherfuckers. Why are you investing so much energy into them? Get me a fucking conference table and a whiteboard so we can sit down at the fucking studio, change the VIP into a fucking office so we can work. Because I'm sitting here with cramps in my fucking back at a bar writing and my computer on my fucking knees. And it got uncomfortable. Like, so fortunately my office wasn't far from there, but I would have days where I would probably see 2-3 hours. Like I'd be in the studio all night with him, going through shit, trying to position things, asking him questions about whether this is true. Do you know this person? Do you know she sued you? You know this is going on? All these things. He's like, no, this. He just seemed dumbfounded to a lot of his fucking business shit. I'm like, this is a man who just had the career that we all fucking wanted and literally just treated it like shit. Like he didn't give a fuck. Like,
Now, I just want to dig into the studio and we can come back to what you're saying because they brought that up in the Survivor Nightclub video as well about the beds and the different rooms
and the buckets.
and the buckets.
Lie.
None of you saw none of that.
That's a lie. He had an apartment on one side of the studio, and then in the front was a foyer where he hosted all of his Friday night things.
So you
on
never
the
saw
second
any.
floor was another apartment. The apartment on the first floor was for whenever his girls wanted to come down and hang out over there while he was making his music or whatever be the case. And then the front of it was where the bar was and the music and all that shit, and the big TVs. And then on the second floor was where his apartment where he lived at. He had a room where he had a massage table and shit set up and a piano. He had another room that he slept in. He had another room that he showered in. He had another room with clothes and stuff. But that was it.
So no rooms with women, girls
no.
in it. None of that.
So you said something that I want to go back to.
You
Go
guys
ahead.
are talking about his first studio. That's Battery Studios. That's where that shit existed at. And we can talk about that.
Whoa, you see that?
Just not at that studio you were a part of.
So listen, what I've heard
Y'all
from
hear
the
that?
horse's mouth, and it's two horses in this scenario. One is
Who's
Rob,
the horse?
One is Rob, and the other one is the young lady that was a part of that scenario.
Oh my God.
Young girls that was a part of the whole Battery Studio situation.
Oh my
So I
God.
heard it directly from a young lady who was a part of that scenario, and she told me that there were rooms, and every one of them had. It was like they had rooms with bathrooms and shit like that, and he had 5 main girls, and every last one of them were underage, and they had their room. And our staff there was just dragging throughout the hallways and shit, and there would be another room.
Did you hear that? So what are they doing? So they doing another part? Oh, they milking this crap, huh? They milking it. So they milking it. So they milked it.
Hey, what's up, man?
That's how they're gonna do. They're gonna keep milking it. Yeah, she's a news reporter in Chicago. Yep. Don Russell knows Tia Ewing. He knows her. Remember he mentioned her name before? He's up to something, y'all. I don't know what it is, but he's up to something. Yeah, Gigi, that's her. That's the same Tia Ewing that dude been talking about for the longest. Yeah, I'm still checking on the motion, the brief motion. She has not submitted it yet, so I'm assuming she probably gonna drop it at 12 o'clock midnight. Yeah, you don't get no time reduction. Every time you go into this little stupid thing, you pay 10 cents. Nope, nothing, y'all. Nothing, nothing, nothing. This woman don't get no views. Thank God. She don't get no views. I did this live so she don't get views. I was trying to let me see if Bruce is okay now. Hold on a second, y'all. Let me see if he hold on. All right, guys. It's crazy. This is crazy, y'all. Crazy, crazy, crazy. DVD said last night that wasn't good. He mad about the money. So I guess this is just the beginning of the terrible stuff that he's gonna say. So you see how they ended off with him saying that all the young girls, underage girls. This is crazy. Like they believe him. They not just eating it up. They asking questions to make it seem they can make them sensitive. Well, guys, I'm sitting and waiting, waiting for something to drop. Well, you know what? Let's take a look at one of Jennifer's motion that she's done in the past that has gone through. Let's go take a look. I got one of them, so we can take a look at stuff that she puts in. How about that? Since we're sitting here waiting. Let me just pull one of her cases. I went and downloaded. You know, y'all know me. This ain't gonna hurt you, right? And y'all know me. I always come up with something to do. Let me go ahead and pull this up for y'all. Let's see, what do I have? I have a previous filing. Okay, they're going to appeal right here. Let's look at Jennifer's appeal. Let's look. Hold on, why is it messing up my stuff? Hold on. This is an appeal, and he needs to give Kel's stuff to Bonjour or Keith. I think TBD is out. She just went live just now. She just went live. All right, this is one of hers. I pulled two cases that Jennifer did. This is one that was in the Seventh Circuit, and this was an appeal. Let's just take a look at it. Okay. Brief for the petitioner appellee, and then Nefertiti Rodriguez. Counsel says the table of authority, jurisdiction statement, statement of issue presented, statement of facts, summary of argument, conclusion, certificate of compliance with type of value limitation, typeface requirement, and type style requirement. And this is all the authorities that they have here. Let me. What is it? Okay, baby. Sylvia said, Sylvia, can you call Spitfire? Tell her live is muted. She's been live for a while and we didn't hear anything. Oh, Lord. Let me call.
text message.
They told me call Spin 5 because they said her live has been playing for a while and she's muted. Can't even watch when you know you know. Spin 5, you're live. Oh my God.
It was a contract showing that Jomo and Barry Hankerson had
All right, y'all, let's go over to TBD. She's live.
filed some papers saying that he's a
All right. Bye.